Hello and welcome to Car Dealer Live. My name is James Batchelor. Customer service is always under the spotlight in the automotive industry, but it seems to be even more in focus in these times of ever-growing online sales and, of course, agency sales. To discuss more about this, I'm joined by Cassie Howell, Director at PHM Group Limited. Hello, Cassie.
Hi, James. Thank you for having me.
No, lovely for you to join us today. Thank you so much. And now I've got a lot to ask you about this because customer service is always something we're talking about.
hmm
Always, dealers are always thinking of it as well, understandably so. But just to start off with, can you just briefly introduce yourself and what the company does?
Yeah, of course. So, PHM are a consultancy. So, we use change management, learning and development, and creative communication to support OEMs to help them to achieve their goals and their strategies. I've been with PHM now for 3.5 years. Prior to that, I've been in the motor industry for, I'm not going to say exactly how long, but a very long time. I joined by mistake because I started as a temp working in a customer contact center. And I think that's where my spark for customer experience came from, because I got to hear firsthand from customers what their challenges were, what their frustrations were, and then also how that made them feel, crucially. So they were disappointed, they were angry, they'd lost trust, understanding all of that emotional side of things from the customer. I left that role to work in franchising, which was all about process, so no emotion there whatsoever, and then decided automotive was a place I wanted to stay. But in order for me to fully understand the business holistically, I needed to get some experience in the dealer network. So I moved out to the dealer network, and I still draw on that experience to this day, because it was this lack of understanding that I'd previously had about how entrepreneurial dealers are, the fast pace that they operate within, the decisions that they have to make all of the time, and quite frankly, sometimes how OEMs cause some of those problems for them. So I left there to have various roles as ZO manager. So I was an area manager, and a national after sales manager, and a regional manager, before moving into working in consultancy, where I've had the opportunity to work with very many OEMs on things like transformation, digital transformation, agency a little bit, and also focusing on sales process. And I joined PHM 3.5 years ago as an account director, and last year was invited to join the board, which I was delighted to do so. My current role is client services director, so I'm responsible for making sure that our clients are fully supported, but also having a look for opportunities to use our expertise and to help other clients as well.
Hmm. Well, I think it's pretty clear that customer service is your passion.
Yes,
Um,
absolutely.
yeah, so I mean, obviously, you're a really good person to answer this then. Why is customer service so important these days then?
Well, I think it's always been really important, certainly with the dealers that I've worked with over the years. But if you think historically, customers would come into a dealer maybe only once a year for a service, or when something goes wrong, despite the many attempts to bring them in for like summer checks and winter checks and things like that. Whereas now, OEMs and dealers are offering multiple services, lots of opportunity to have those touch points with those customers, which of course is opportunities to delight the customer, but also opportunities to cause friction.
Hmm.
And I think the other element of it is that customers experience other industries, and they don't just compare their current dealer to a previous one or the one up the road. They compare their experience to other experiences that they've had with, whether that's hotels or booking things online, travel. So that's who you're kind of benchmarking against.
Yeah, but really, this is a mass generalization here. But generally speaking, and I think this is probably true over the past couple of decades or so. I mean, customer service in the automotive sector is pretty good, isn't it? They deliver a great service.
Yeah, in the main, I agree with you. I think it is like some dealers definitely have that customer centric approach to things, but I think it comes down to a nuance of explanation, the difference between customer service and customer experience.
Mm.
So if you asked 5 people, can you explain to me what customer service, customer experience is? They're likely to come to you and say, Well, from an automotive perspective, the vehicle was ready when I expected it to be. It was fixed, it was clean, I had a courtesy car. And that's all customer service, which is important. And it's very difficult to have a positive customer experience if all of those process elements aren't already in place. But customer experience is more about how the customer is made to feel, positively or negatively. So it's that delight in the customer so that they want to tell everybody about it. And if I give you an example of a recent experience that I've had in my life of really good customer experience, I took my children to go to a place we go quite frequently to buy bath bombs. They're obsessed with bath bombs. And we went in there, and the sales consultant comes over, spends time with the children, lets them feel the product. And then when we go to leave, gives them a product for free. We must have been with them for about 10 minutes, gave me an opportunity to browse. So I ended up paying more, purchasing more things than I expected to. And my young son, when we were leaving, said, "This is the best day of my life. I want to work here when I'm older." Now, that is a story I'll tell everybody because that made us feel really positive.
Mm.
Now, had I have gone in there and they had the product, I could get served really quickly. There was no queue. That's a good service. You see the difference. It's a small difference, but a significant one when it comes to customer loyalty, I think.
Mm. Yeah, I hadn't thought of it like that before, the two different well, terminologies, but of course they have two different meanings and experiences the customer goes through. So yeah, that's really interesting. So I mean, obviously my next question is on the customer experience side,
Mm.
how do dealers create that experience as opposed to just offering a service?
Yeah, I think they have to get the basics right because that's what people expect. So meeting expectations is the first level. But beyond that, it's around various things like trust. So the customer needs to know that what they're hearing is correct. Nobody should be having to chase where their vehicle is that they've ordered, or if the vehicle's going to be ready on time. So communication, but honest communication. If there's a problem, just explain the problem and then explain what you're going to do to resolve that problem. It's about making it personal as well, not making people feel like they're being processed. Spend that time with the customer to understand what their needs are and what their expectations might be. And it's got to be simple and straightforward. Like, nobody wants the onus to be on the customer and for it to be a complicated experience. No customer wants to ask a quick question of a dealer and then not get a response for 3 days later, and the response is, "Why don't you give us a call?" Like, that's not a positive experience for that customer.
Mm.
And then I think the final thing is just really getting to know your customer, understanding what they use their vehicles for. And once you capture that information, sharing it with colleagues so that they don't continuously have to explain themselves, regardless of what they're coming in for. So I think those are some fairly easy, she says,
Mm.
basic steps that I think dealers could put into place to support a better customer experience.
Okay, so we've established what the customer experience is, and it's becoming more and more important. But why does delivering it need a better relationship between dealers and their NSCs?
Well, we've sort of established that customers compare to other businesses, so their expectations are really, really high. And we've now got omni-channel experience, digital marketing, connected vehicles. So more and more opportunities for OEMs and dealers to contact that customer. And it needs to be seamless. And every decision that's made should have the customer at the heart of that decision. Another example I've got where clearly somebody's thinking that they've got a very customer-centric approach to the customer, but actually they're just missing the spot, is when I went for a meal with my daughter last week. Great experience. We get to the end of it, I get the bill, and I am forced to go through a customer feedback before I can actually get to the bill and pay for it. Now, somebody in that organization is thinking we've got the customer at the heart of everything because we're gathering all of this data. But what they're not thinking about is what I might have wanted in that instance. So I think it's important that the OEMs and the dealers work together to establish in everything that they do what's the best for the customer here.
Mm, yeah, and interestingly, just butting in, dovetailing with what you've just said there, it seems like every single day when you've bought something, 2 days later you get an email link
Yeah.
asking for a survey, and it's well intentioned, but
Mm.
more often than not, if you've bought something, you've had a great experience, you don't want to fill out customer
No.
customer satisfaction form because you just expect to have a good experience at the outset, don't you? So
Yeah, I think you're right. I totally agree.
yeah. So interestingly, I just pick up on something you said in that answer about putting the customer, in the center, customer centric approach. We hear a lot about that particular term when manufacturers are considering deploying an agency model. The customer is right at the very heart of the buying
Mm.
experience, and therefore the OEM wants to take more control over the buying process. Um, would you agree with that? I mean, do you think it does sound of that ilk?
Yeah, I think not necessarily. I don't think there is a perfect solution. I think that there are some benefits to agency model and its various iterations between it, true agency and franchising. Um, one data stream, contacting the customer. There's the continuity there. Um, However, the dealers have that ability to flex and to make decisions. They're in the best interest of the customer, so there's a benefit to that side of it. I think if it's real consideration needs to be around how it's approached, and it has to be approached with the OEM and the dealer network in partnership, so that the customer is always at the core of what we're trying to achieve. We don't want a customer if an OEM switched to agency, to get confused about who am I speaking with, because it feels like two separate entities and two separate businesses. And we don't want dealers to lose that flexibility to do what's right in that moment for that customer and make those decisions. So I think it could be a good solution, but both sides have to be equally invested and both sides have to be involved in that process.
Mm. Yeah, well, we've spoken about how important these relationships are. I mean, the next question, quite obviously, is how do dealers build these relationships?
Well, I think it's around trying to understand what the goal is. So, where's the North Star that we're aiming together towards, and that it is together and that it's in collaboration? I spoke about in the dealer network, you've got some totally experienced, highly intelligent, capable people that have got a lot to bring to the table. And OEMs equally have got some really talented people who have a vision, a very clear vision. But in my experience, OEMs talk a lot about partnership. It's a word that's used a lot, or dealer partnership. But I would say it's more like parent-child than partnership, with the OEMs being the parent, using the carrot of the bonus to get dealers to go along with a process for all of the right reasons, and using the stick when that doesn't happen. And I think it would be best if actually everybody was invested together, and the breadth and the diversity of the experience was brought together to one, so that we could sort of see what the best solutions are. So it doesn't feel like it's something that's happening to the dealer, and they can fully understand what's in it for the customer, what's in it for the brand, because let's be honest, the brands have now got all kinds of disruptors that they're having to consider and think about, disruptors that are coming to the market who don't have the legacy of a dealer network to consider. So what's the
Mm,
best in terms of future proofing the brands? And then, of course, what's the best for the customer? And I think it's those conversations and those communications and that mutual alignment that's really important.
mm. Finally, Cassie, I mean, how will this process start?
Well, I think it could start with something smaller, something where we can see that both the OEM and the dealer have got a really strong invested interest in, something like recruitment, making sure that you have the right and best people. So aligning on what job roles are and what those competencies for those people in those job roles should be, and then working towards upskilling and enabling those people to do the best that they can do, and of course also appealing to people to come into automotive, appealing to people with different backgrounds to come into automotive. So I think it could start with something like that, where you could get those synergies, and prove the concept that collaborating together is working and is effective. And then I think you could move beyond that point then to say, this has worked. Now this is the next thing that we're going to solve together.
Mm. Uh, well, there are a lot of interesting things to take away there. I hope that's not the last time we're going to speak, because I feel as though we could come back to this again in the future. But But for today, Cassie, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you so much. Nice to see you.
Well, that's it for today's Car Dealer Live. Join us again very soon. Bye-bye.